Hello everyone, I am Song Fan and today I'm going to show you how I created my first piece of music painting. And no, it's not just listening to music while painting, no. In this video, I'm going to explain what I did to recreate the music's expression using shapes and colors, and also what I did wrong or how I could have improved my work. So the music that I chose to work with is Vivaldi's Concerto No. 4 in F minor, aka The Winter. This piece is one in a set of 4 concertos, along with spring, summer, autumn, that are together called 4 seasons, which obviously express the seasons of the year. The reason I chose to paint winter is for its dramatic expression of both the weather and the music itself, which I'll try my best to represent in my work. The first thing to do after choosing the music was actually making a trial painting on a small canvas. This is to practice what I actually want to do for my final work. Considering myself as a great and creative artist, I decided to abandon the paintbrush and use the paint scraper to spread and impaste the paint onto the canvas. At that time, I was very happy with how the work turns out. It really speaks winter to me and it looks great and it fills with expression and emotion until I realized that what I did was only using the music to set the mood while painting, which is completely wrong. Moving on to the actual painting, I came up with a different idea. But first, I realized that this canvas is too artificial white, so I have to stain it with a little bit of paint using opaque white, some yellow, and a tiny bit of black, and then thin it out with some water and retarder. Mix it all up, pour it onto the canvas. Do not waste any paints here. And using a flat white brush to spread it out as even as I can. Remember to cover all the corners and white spots. And now all we have to do is wait till it's dry. Finally realized that I'm not that great of an artist, I went back with the paintbrushes and decided to build painting in layers of lines in tone of black, grays, and whites, starting from the darkest. For this layer, I just create a large, vast structure with long connected lines and tried to keep it simple. My purpose here was to express the visual image that I picture from the music, the mountains during winter. After the first layer is dried, I mix a little bit of white paint with black and create a very dark gray color. And I didn't go randomly with this line. Instead, I follow the structure of the first layer and add in only a little bit more details. This time the line work has more curves and turns to it, which kind of represents the structure of a forest that is laid in front of the mountains. Onto the third layer with a lighter gray, I drew mostly curvy lines and kept it a bit lower than the previous layer. I did compare Vivaldi's Winter with Chopin's Winter Wind, which actually was my first choice for this work. I realized that although both pieces expressed winter with a sense of dramatic, they still have a difference, where Chopin's Winter Wind has the dramatical feature in the rushing change from autumn to winter. The sense of dramatic in Vivaldi's piece, on the other hand, is in the freezing cold of a long winter, which opens a wider view of the season. And that was why I came up with the main structure of mountain and forest. For the fourth layer, I decided to represent a sense of warmth that I pictured during the second movement of the piece. This time, instead of using long curves, I chose to paint short, straight crossed lines. I want the structure of this layer to be less natural, more artificial, and more human-made in order to evoke the image of the town and the human life, which represents that warmth from the music. I also kept this layer down at the bottom of the canvas so that the human presence wouldn't be too much and wouldn't overpower the structure of the nature, which is the main focus of this painting. Now we're at the fifth layer and the gray paint is at a much lighter tone. The line works here are no more straight, connected lines or soft curves. Instead, I created short, wiggly lines to represent the trembling feeling that comes from the violin trill parts in the music. The wiggle of the lines also depicts this cloudy, foggy atmosphere that normally comes during winter to the painting. Then, with the lightest shade of gray, I created not lines but spirals that express the pathway of falling snowflakes. The specific shape of these spirals also referred to the dancing motion of light or fire. I got this idea from the pizzicato notations of the violins during the first and the third movements, which reminds me of the snow fairies and their little playful footsteps. It was very interesting for me to find the contrast between the joyfulness from the lightly footsteps, represented by the short spirals, with the extreme coldness that they create for the weather, represented by the long straight lines. The juxtaposition of the two images create a complexity for the music piece, and I really want to recreate that complex in my artwork. In the final layer of line work, I used opaque, pure white paint and create straight, slashing lines with absolutely no curve. This layer was specifically a response to the third movement of the music, where I expressed the cutting cold breezes from the violin slurs in high pitch. The white color was also my intention to create a frosty, frozen kind of glaze on top of the whole structure, which emphasized the intense coldness in Vivaldi's winter. After all of these line works, I diluted blue paint with water and retarder and used a bigger paintbrush to drip and splash onto the canvas. Then I used paper towel to lightly dab on the splashes, which left a translucent, blue-stained layer on top of the painting. I repeat the whole process with the teal green tone. However, when everything was dried, I realized that the teal color was overpowered by the blue, and my painting was covered in a cliché, boring bluish tone. So I decided to add in a third layer of stain, using orange, a complementary color with blue. Unfortunately, I realized that the color-stained layer, which is supposed to be translucent, just overpowered the white line work and undid its frosty frozen effect. So I had to use a thin brush and opaque white paint to go over most of the white lines again. With a little bit more touch up here and there, finally I came up with the results of my work. Although there were mistakes and problems occurred during the process, I've managed to receive information from the music and able to express it in my painting. There are definitely changes that I would like to make, but I am very happy with how the work finally turns out. I am Song Fan, and this is how I created my first music painting artwork. Thank you very much for your patience.